Welcome to another Enrichment with the Gifted Guy. What we're going to be talking about today is not just finding research, but then determining whether that research is valid or not. And you may be asking yourself, what does it mean to be valid? And so let me define this clearly and what valid means. Valid means finding research that is from a reputable source. So it's not just some random person that put something on the internet. It might be a university or a medical facility, or it might be a study that was done, or it might be something of that nature. And what these do, by having valid research, it makes your findings more legitimate. Now, there'll be times when you're doing research where you'll have to look for opinions, but are these opinions of experts? So if you're looking at, something and the expert and the person that is giving the opinion is a surgeon general or someone who is very, is in the medical field, then more than likely that's more of a reputable or valid piece of information. If it's just someone randomly saying, well, I heard this, then that's not terribly valid. And so what I'm going to show you today is how to determine how things are valid and some red flags that determine that they may not be, and some green flags that determine that they are. So I'm going to my Google search and I'm going to put in here, what things can add years to your life? This is going to be my central question. So I'm curious as to what I can do to make myself live longer. And so you do that, and there are over 4 billion sites that it's directing you to. Now, obviously, not all of these, almost 5 billion, by the way, but obviously not all of these 5 billion sites are going to have valid information. It just may be someone, who wrote a blog but doesn't back up what they're saying. And so what you want to do is you want to look for some green flags before you go into any of the sites. So for example, according to researchers, is a green flag in that it sounds like it's something that's been researched. Um, Proven and simple tricks to add years to your life. So when it says tricks, that makes me think like, oh, this is not necessarily valid, because tricks is something that you do to get out of something. It's not something that's necessarily, although it does say proven, but that trick sets up a red flag for me, so I'm probably going to look at that. You can also look at the websites themselves. So health.com, that might be probably a reputable site if it's got something like that. But if you come and you find something like plumdeluxe.com, I've never heard of that plumdeluxe.com. And so it might not be the most valid site and reputable site. Menshealth.com would be a good one that I could click on. So verywellhealth.com. So simple steps to increase your life expectancy. So let's take a look here. I'm going to go and click on this one. And we're going to see within the article itself how valid what it is that they're doing. So for example, it says you should go outside. Okay, that may be one person's opinion, but let's see if they back any of it up. And so they talk about how being outside exposes your skin to produce vitamin D. And vitamin D is the easiest and cheapest ways to improve your health. Some estimate that 50% of adults have low levels of vitamin D. And you notice, see these ones right here. These are where this information comes from. So you can see when I hover over it, this says it's from Drake Kennel, who is wrote an article that was called Vitamin D Deficiency in Adults, When to Test and How to Treat, by the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic, you may or may not know, is not a clinic that has condiments. It's actually one of the most highly regarded medical clinics in the country. And so that's probably a reputable or valid piece of information. You can check out further, like hanging out with friends. I would be like, what science is behind that? But they do go through here and they do talk about, but they don't really actually. There's nothing, although they do have some research here that's could be that having people around you reduces the impact of stress on your health. And so again, here's another, and you could always click on this and take you to that to see what it looks like. Although in this case, the link is broken, so we're not gonna be able to do that. But this one, maybe not as much. I'm not as sold on this particular piece of information being valid. So getting daily exercise. And so hopefully they have 3 hours a little. So they have this physical activity increase your life expectancy, review of literature. So you can click on that and you have articles. And I don't expect you to read all these articles, but what this shows you is if they've spent this much time researching it and laying it out and trying to come up with a solution, it's probably reputable. And so those are some flags that you have, some green flags and red flags that you have within the article. And so you can continue, by the way, not all the best websites are going to be necessarily on the first page. Matter of fact, a lot of times when you do a search, the first few ones that show up are advertisements or advertisers. And of course, they're selling their products. And so that's not very valid. They're very biased because they want to sell their product. And so they're going to say this product will help to expand your life when it may not necessarily do that. So we can go explore some further pages. And again, we're looking for green flags, science-backed. The world's longest living people share this hobby. That's just kind of intriguing. I'm like, well, what hobby would that be? Let's go ahead and check out the site and see if it would be something that's reputable. And so this is for CNBC, which is a national news agency. And it talks in here that there's plenty of research. Gardening is the hobby, by the way. Who would have thunk that gardening would be something that could help you live longer? But I'm intrigued by this plenty of research, so I'm going to click on it. And then you have this gardening for health. And you have, again, I don't expect you to read all of this or go through all of this, but this just shows you that what they're talking about is backed by reputable information or reputable people. And so this would be a very interesting one. There's a famous 1984 study, and there's all sorts of things in here. And then a good sign of an article that's valid is if you go down to the bottom, and actually in this one, there's not one, but if you find a reference page, let me try to find one that has references at the bottom. So I'll go into this science-based. So let's go down on the bottom. And sometimes they don't have them down at the bottom because they have them contained within. This one also does not. But let's take a look at the author here. This is Stephanie Eckelkamp. She is of course you have to get past these ads and stuff. As a writer and editor, has been working for leading health publications for the past 10 years. She received her BS in journalism from Syracuse. So does that make her necessarily reputable? Well, maybe not. But when it says research shows and you click on that, research shows, and if you are, again, led to articles, then or research studies, then it's probably somewhat reputable. Now, I'm going to go to some of these later ones to see if I can find one that's not so reputable. All right. Oh, this is an interesting one. This one, then some of these just may catch your eye. Like sitting less than 3 hours a day can add years to your life. So I'd be like, okay, well, I sit a lot. I kind of want to take a look at that and when I'm doing my research. And it's just called Deseret News. It doesn't necessarily tell me that it's reputable. But what you can do is you can look through here and it says Time reported, Wall Street Journal reported. These are all reputable publications, CBS News. So it's not saying like Uncle Johnny or Hobo Billy or whatever. It actually is talking about how people who've done this for a living, who research this, that is backed by science, are doing these things. Let's see if I can find one that maybe is a little less. So eating this Iowa-grown fruit could add years to your life. Let's take a look. First off, it comes from a radio station. So not so certain that this is going to be the most reputable. So let's say, they do say a 20-year study. suggesting we lose up to 36 minutes of life after eating just one hot dog. If that's true, I'm probably don't have much time left because I eat a lot of hot dogs. However, it makes me want to go through and look a little bit. So they talk about walnuts just 5 times a week and add 1.3 years to your life. Is there anything in here that backs that up? Okay. And I would say I don't see anything that's linked to site or a study or anything like that. It just says snacking on it can help you. 2 major species of walnuts, that's all very well and good. It still doesn't show me where this information is coming from. And so this may not be the best site to look at. So I kind of avoid this site for that very reason. Another thing that I want to talk about is a lot of times you are steered away from Wikipedia because Wikipedia could be written by anyone. That's the kind of the idea of Wikipedia. However, there are experts that write on Wikipedia. And so rather than just wholeheartedly dismiss Wikipedia, Wikipedia is a good place to get started, to give you some general information. And as always, you're looking for the red and green flags. So what are the things that make it sound like it knows what it's talking about? So right off the bat, it has some charts and graphs. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it reputable. However, when you go through a Wikipedia article, you do have these footnotes. If it's a good article, and in these you could click on them, and actually this takes you down to the bottom. If you look at these references, you can look at some of these, or these seem reputable. So in this case, this is taken from the U.S. Bureau of the Census. It seems pretty legitimate to me. It talks about social sciences and medicine, e-medicine, Townsend letter for doctors and patients. So these all seem like pretty reasonable sites. And so if you can actually click on them and it will take you to more information. And so this is why Wikipedia can be a good thing, is because if they've done a good job with their references, like in here, this particular article, goodness, there are 158 references. That probably means it's pretty reputable. So as I'm searching through these articles, again, I'm looking for red flags that push me away from places and green flags that maybe think that is a valid place to look. So if I'm going through here and I see 12 reasons yoga helps improve lifespan, and I look that this is called the whole you. And so when I look through this, it's posted by Mary Hazen. I don't know what her qualifications are, but let's take a look. Nothing. So that's probably not good. And it has all these tips. Increases blood flow. What proof or evidence do they have to say that? Ups your heart rate. Again, there's no proof or evidence. There are no citations in here. When we go down, the source is a yoga journal. So of course a yoga journal is going to, tell you that yoga is a great thing to do because it's going to increase their business. So I would say this is not a really valid article to use because there's no science to back it up. There's no reputable resources that say that this is actually. Now, I'm not saying that these aren't accurate. I mean, you may go and do further research and find out that yoga does increase blood flow based on science. But if you don't do that, then you can't just rely on this article and what it's saying. You have to make sure that you are taking a look. And again, if you look at the bottom, there are no references, no anything. And so I would be very hesitant to use this particular information in my research. You do want to be careful at times because if you go to sites that are just based on people's opinion and anyone can post anything, like Reddit is an example. So this is, what are you doing to extend your life? So you may say, oh, well, I wonder what they're doing. But this is all, anyone could put anything in here. So let's see if we can't find one that's, so here they talk about vegetables and diet, reverse osmosis water, no polyester clothes. Interesting. There's nothing to back that up. So what does that necessarily say? So if you go through here, you might find some that are definitely not going to be reputable. So for example, home cooked meals high in vegetables, and I'm not sure why home cooked meals, it doesn't really explain why. And this is, I also do, these are personal preferences. These are things that these people do themselves rather than necessarily something that's up. Now here we have some sites or some references and things of that nature. CT, that might be a good thing. But there are going to be things in here. I donate $5 to Sends Monthly. I don't know if that's going to extend your life. So, and why that would be something that there's nothing there that tells you that that would be the case. Another thing that you would want to do with your research is to verify that research. So for example, if we go into this 10 simple steps to increase your life expectancy, and it says going outside for 15 minutes a day and exposing your hands to the face to sunlight. So we could go back and then do a Google search. How does going outside increase your life expectancy? And then you're going to get the very same article, but there are other articles in here too. Living near nature linked to longer studies. Longer lives, says study. And so it's based on a study. And is it a reputable? It's Harvard. That's probably a pretty good, reputable study. And so in here, they're showing that this new study found that living in or near green areas can help women live longer and improve their mental health, but not men. So maybe we want to go look at another article, since I'm not a woman in this case. How much nature is enough? This is the New York Times, and this says it's a medical fact. Time spent outside, especially in green spaces, is good for you. Now let's see if they can back that up at all. Scientific reports. Oh, so there's a journal here. So let's click on that and see where it takes us. Again, we have the scientific reports where it talks about all the things to back up what they're saying. So they are saying 120 minutes each week spent outdoors can be very, very beneficial to your life. And they did a study at in this journal, Scientific Reports, in order to prove that. And then they go on to explain what the study did. It looked at 20,000 people in England and from this particular year. So this seems like it's pretty valid. So I would say that I could believe that that's a valid fact because it is backed up. And I may want to back up a couple ways. So health benefits to being outside. So this is, let's see if this is reputable ones. And so it talks about a person in their book, The Nature Fix, Why Nature Makes Us Happier. And again, I'm not sure about that book. I don't know its reputation, so I don't know why I would consider that valid necessarily. But here, in one study, again, this is a green flag. University of Michigan students were given a brief memory test, divided into two groups. One took a walk around the arboretum. The other took a walk down the city street. The ones that walked amongst the trees did 20% better. So you would want to look, and there's a similar study. So you do have things that verify that what you are finding is valid. And you always, it's kind of like in math, when you always want to check the answer to make sure you got it right. Same thing goes with your research. You'll want to check in a couple of places to make sure that the research that you're finding is valid and it is corroborated by someone else. It is also that opinion or that fact is shared by others as well. Reputable others, not just someone's opinion.